it's Lexie. So in today's video I'm going to be doing the Gilmore Girls book tag, which I'm surprised I haven't done yet because I'm a huge fan of Gilmore Girls. And so it's basically like coming November, it's been like 1 year since the revival, so I feel like some of the hype has died down, but I will forever be a Gilmore Girls fan. I know during like midterms week I was wanting to just kind of watch something happy, so I watched the pilot episode and I'm watching it, I'm like, wait a second, because I know that the Stars Hollow that's in the pilot isn't the one that they use for like the rest of the series, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, that can't be. So I looked it up and it turns out that the pilot episode of Gilmore Girls for Stars Hollow is actually filmed in my hometown in Canada, which was crazy. I texted my sister, I'm like, watch the pilot of Gilmore Girls, what does it look like? Yeah, so it's crazy. So they were there filming it when I was there, which is crazy. And they also filmed the Scream team from Disney Channel, and we actually got to meet one of the ghosts, the blue ghost. Yeah, he talked to us with our dog Lucky at the time. So yeah, fun fact, apparently where I live in Canada is where a lot of things are filmed, so fun fact of the day. So basically this tag has 10 questions that are like based on characters, and then you kind of relate that character in Gilmore Girls to a book that you've read. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first one is Lorelai, a character with a sarcastic or witty sense of humor. And for this one, I went with Cinder from the Looter Chronicles, and I think this one was like a kind of little bit, especially when you look at her like bickering that she does with Thorne. I feel like this is where we really get to see her kind of sarcastic, like witty sense of humor really come out, and you can kind of see it all throughout the series just with her like little remarks here and there, but I think it really shows through with her kind of interactions with Thorne, which are like I think my favorite parts about the whole series. Like I love them so much. So yeah, this was a character that came to mind. I had a hard time with this one actually, because I was like, I don't know. But yeah, this is the first one that pops into my mind because I feel like Cinder does walk that fine line between like, you know, like sarcastic and like witty humor, so I think she fits perfectly for this one. Next one is, so question 2 is Rory, and it is your favorite classic. For this one, it was actually pretty easy because I feel like a lot of the classics that I read in high school I never really liked, and this was the only one that I liked, so it was very easy. And it is Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I read this in grade 10, and this, like I said, this was the only book that I liked from high school, and it's weird because I love the book but I do not like the movies, like the one that came out I want to say like 2012-ish, like the one with like Russell Crowe and all that, and like I don't know what it was, but I just did not like it. I think part of it is I don't like musicals where they sing conversations, like it's just one big song and they sing conversations. Like I like Wicked where there's like songs but they talk the dialogue. So this is like my favorite like classic because I hate Shakespeare, and I actually didn't have to read a lot of classics, just we moved around a lot, so in high school, so like I got to reread a couple of them, so I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of classics. So question 3 is Luke, and it is a book that you secretly love but are afraid to admit. And this isn't really one that I feel like I do talk about books all the time, so like I don't feel like there's anything that I'm ashamed about reading, so I took this one as one that's not really like, it has mixed reviews and not everyone likes. So I went with The Queen of the Tearling by Erika Johanson. I really love this book, and I feel like part of the problem with why people don't like this one is that it's very different. It's more kind of adult fantasy, it's very dark, and then Kelsey in particular, a lot of people criticize her, but I don't know, I really like this series. I think it's very dark and twisted, and it's like, just in terms of like the feminism in this book and just how it kind of sheds light on kind of the darker aspects of our society in terms of just religion and rule and like having power in a political system. Like I really like this book, but I feel like for some reason not everyone likes it, and I can see why, but I think the flaws of this book, not flaws, but the flaws of Kelsey as a character make her more realistic. Like she's not perfect. In fact, I prefer her to like Aelin or like Selena from Throne of Glass or any of the other Sarah J Maas characters. Question 4 is Lane, and name a musical character. So this one I had a really hard time because I couldn't think of one. Ended up going with just a book that has a bunch of musical characters in it, and it is The Keeper of Secrets by Julie Thomas. This is a book that I read years and years ago, and it's basically a dual storyline, but it kind of takes place in the center of World War II that follows a Jewish family that had this very expensive and well-known violins stolen from them during like the German, like when the Germans came in and took everything. And then it ended up going to it ended up trading hands throughout the wars, and it ended up in the hands of a German. And it just kind of follows the history of this violin, and then in present day where this younger kid is learning the violin and all this stuff, and this history is kind of coming about. So I think it was a really interesting book in just terms of how everything is connected, and just how like in real life example, just how things traded hands throughout the war, and like the Germans stealing everything, and just where that stuff ended up in the history behind that. So I found that to be very interesting. So question 5 is Dean, and it is your first book love. And this one I think I would have to say is Finnick. Like when I was younger, I wasn't really like swept off my feet like book characters like I am now. So I think part of it was like my love for Finnick is just I really love Sam Kaplan. And his like in the Hunger Games, watching him in Catching Fire. So I think that's part of it. So he's like the first one that I kind of fangirled about. And now like there's a couple ones here, but I think he was kind of like the original one that kind of sparked everything, because I feel up until that point I was just like, yeah, whatever, like, you know, he's cool, but you know, it wasn't like love, deep love. So Finnick all the way. So question 6 is Sookie, and this is a book that you devoured. And for this one, I went with The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. Of course, I always have to include a Kate Morton book, I feel, in here, but this is the one that I read over the summer, and it has like a dual storyline, and it's just the way it was described in here, like I was trying to figure out the mystery, and I was so invested in it that I read it over the course of a couple days. Like I remember sitting out on our back porch reading it like all day on a Sunday, and I finished it. I'm like, I couldn't put it down, I need to finish it. And it was borderline obsessive, but it was well worth it, because I was like, I need to know the ending of this. So this kind of ties in with the other one, and it's just a book you love that gets the most hate. So this one I would also say with kind of Queen of the Tearling, just going back with what I said, I've already kind of discussed it, but definitely Queen of the Tearling. I love it no matter what the hate it gets. So yeah. So question 8 is Miss Patty, a book that was ruined by all the hype, and this one hands down would have to be Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. I remember hearing so many great things about this when this book came out from like a lot of trusted sources that I really like. So when I had my ACL surgery, I got that book from the library. I read it, and it was just horrible. I feel like part of it was like everyone worked it up to be so good, like the concept sounded really good, and just how all the praise that it got on BookTube in particular. I feel like on Goodreads it got kind of ripped up on Goodreads, but I feel like on BookTube, like everyone's like, this book's awesome, it's amazing, and like I found it to be very problematic. The storyline was very dry. There's so many characters, and the plot was just never explained, and like nothing happens for like 90% of the book. So I don't know, this one I think was ruined for the hype, because I was told like it was amazing, like, and I went into it expecting that, and it was everything but. So question 9 is Emily, an expensive book, and for this one I did Harry Potter page to screen. I got this a couple years ago, and it is probably by far the most expensive book out there that I own on my shelf. And at the time I got it for $47, and it, like no joke, probably weighs a good like 10 pounds, and it's crazy. But it basically goes in depth of everything from how they kind of made, like how the books were used, and like when the books came out, like how they like did everything to make it make an adaptation to get to the film. Just everything from like costume design to characters to finding the cast and like all this stuff. And it's like probably a good 2 inches thick, and like I said, 10 pounds. So it's like well worth the money, but it was just really expensive. And yeah. So question 10 is Paris, and it is a uptight character. So I kind of took uptight to be like a negative thing. I think Paris is like one of my favorite characters, and like her scene in the revival with the bathroom scene with like her leg going up is iconic. So I took this one and kind of spun it a little bit, and then that's a character that's driven, and that's driven, and kind of their driven personality kind of gives them a bad reputation, or they're kind of seen as being like rude. And for this one I went with Dr. Mara Isles from the Rizzoli Isles series. Especially in this one here, she's very passionate about her work, she's very intellectual, and kind of within the first novel she's kind of told as like, even now they call her like the Queen of Death, and she's kind of very much kind of in the beginning very isolated from all the other characters, and her kind of just passion and driven for, like, her driven nature for her work kind of make people kind of take her as like very standoffish, but she's just very focused on what she does. Eventually that does bloom into a good relationship that she has with Jane, and especially with I Know a Secret we got to see more of that. So yeah, definitely I think this one is like kind of the equivalent of Paris, but like Paris and Mara in the TV shows, I love them. So yeah. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below what some of your favorite Gilmore Girls moments are. And yeah, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.